We didn't know this at the time, but Kimi Antonelli's first laps in the competitive F1 session really set the trend for what was to come. Blinding speed when confident in the car, but young enough to push it in places it can't be pushed, or drive it onto parts of the track where it can't be driven, i.e. not the black stuff. Fast forward 12 months later, and now you have names like these being floated around. And well, normally I'd make more of a joke out of that, given this is being uploaded on September 11th. That's probably not a good idea, is it? The 2025 Italian Grand Prix was the latest in a string of poor performances, and for the first time this year, the Totonator's songs of praise have been replaced with, well, the Benny Hill theme. Only YouTube's copyright system didn't like that very much, so enjoy silence instead. And let's just remember, no contract is in place for 2026. Now, being realistic, Kimi's not going anywhere, but let me just add a bit of tension to this one. Even so, how the hell have we even got here? Kimi Antonelli's junior career was quite frankly astonishing, but you've probably seen the Josh Revel video already, so I'm not going to waste all of your time. If we stick to the highlights, Italian F4, P1, Formula 4, P1, Formula Regional Middle East Championship, P1, Formula Regional European Championship, P1, Formula 2, P6, but in fairness, that series is about as good at highlighting talent as your dad is at pulling out. There were still calls throughout that 2024 season for Kimi to get the call up to Formula 1, and with a top team no less. Though that's sort of the first part of the problem. It's no secret that Toto Wolff wanted Antonelli to be his Verstappen, and in fairness to him, there are some parallels, the exceptional junior rap sheet, plus the tendency to drive into things. The Austrian is always rude, missing out on Max himself, and so in his bid to emulate Red Bull's past success, made a decision to drop Antonelli straight into the main team rather than let him fester at an Alpine, or Williams for example. That's exactly what they did with their last successful junior, though arguably George Russell spent one too many seasons as Go-Tifi's bitch and should have been moved up sooner. If this was the too conservative approach, then maybe what's happened with Kimi Antonelli has gone too far in the other direction. While Mercedes isn't the top team it was in the early days of the turbo hybrid era, they still very much operate like one. That means its drivers are expected to immediately be contending for podiums and wins, regardless to whether they understand the carbon fibre trash can that's currently underneath them. For an 18-year-old who's probably only just discovered his own pubes, that's a rather frightening concept, and one that only compounds with the pressure of this being his first season in Formula 1. That said, the sport rocked up to the first round in Australia, and things seem to be going rather well. Being knocked out in Q1 wasn't a great start, but when the heavens let loose on Sunday, Antonelli was one of only two rookies to make it to the end of the race unscathed. Behrman was the other one, though he'd driven an F1 car in these conditions before, and, well, he'd done his fair share of bidding it already earlier in the weekend. As the Haas driver came home 7 seconds behind the rest of the pack in 14th, Kimi was pulling daring moves in places we'd never seen before, eventually coming across the line 4th and making us think, you know what, maybe this kid really has got it. This seemed to hold true as the Italians' quali form improved over the next string of races and the points began rolling in. This of course culminating in sprint pole at the Miami Grand Prix, which coincidentally is also where things began to go wrong. Rain once again made conditions ever so slightly shit, but when McLaren's Oscar Piastri made the better start and challenge for the lead into turn 1, Kimi fought the battle too hard and found himself studying the outer reaches of the circuit's runoff area. Not a great start, and not one that would get any better, as the Mercedes driver then got a taste of Red Bull front wing in the pit lane, causing him to miss his box and make a return trip one lap later, all on worn intermediates on a drying track, which means if this race was a cocktail, it would be the Brown Russian, which if you've never had it before, consists of 1 part vodka, 1 part milk, and a diarrhea chaser. Remarkably, Kimi was still able to pick up some points, though it was little consolation for what could have been his first trip to an F1 victory lane, and really it was only about to get worse from here. Power unit failures in Imola and Spain, sandwiching a slightly more accountable brain failure in Monaco qualifying, stopped the Italians' progress in its tracks. Canada was then a much better return to form, Mercedes with the quickest car on Sunday, and Kimi running in the podium places late on, but under threat from the pair of McLarens behind. Then of course the bottle job did his thing, though Kimi was still able to survive the late safety car and subsequent attack from Piastri to remain in the top 3 and take home his first F1 podium. This looked like a bit of a turning point for the team. Their new update placed on the car back at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, seemingly working well and turning their outfit into challenges for podiums and wins. But this update was not all that it seemed, masking a dark undertone that would only come to the surface much later in the year. Tell you what, we'll call the update Harvey Weinstein. Harvey would remain on the Silver Arrow all the way through to the start of August, making it increasingly challenging to extract pace from the car and sucking away Antonelli's confidence at the same time. That's even more detrimental for a rookie, who by this point had seemingly joined team boss Toto Wolff in suffering from an unhealthy attraction to anything Red Bull. be it diving into Max Verstappen in Austria or Isaac Hadjar getting his revenge for the Dutchman 1 round later at Silverstone. Kimi's qualifying results also began to deteriorate, 19th in Belgium and 15th in Hungary 1 week later. Mercedes' version of the Me Too movement to remove Harvey from the car was aimed at restoring the Italian's previous confidence, but 2 rounds into that change and the desired effects have failed to materialise. Zandvoort was messy for several reasons, forgetting how steering wheels worked both in practice and then race day, which also turned Charles Leclerc into an Instagram model and made people begin to wonder if Mercedes may just have made a mistake in promoting Antonelli into F1 so quickly. The Italian's home race rolls around then, 12 months on from his initial signing to the team, and he makes it 1 session further before binning it in the gravel halfway through FP2. Qualifying was at least better with 6th, though that's about as useful as a pin-pricked condom when you cock up the start and find yourself battling in the lower extremities of the top 10. Underwhelming was the word used by Toto Wolff after that race, the first time the Austrian's faith in his driver has publicly appeared to waver this year, and it's unsurprising when you consider the team could be in a fight with Ferrari and Red Bull for P2 in the Constructors' Championship, yet instead have one of their drivers with less points than the Williams. I'm not even joking, just look it up. You've then got 2026 to consider, and while the rumour mill changes every 5 minutes, the Silver Arrows are being tipped to have one of the better packages heading into the new regulations. What the team don't want a repeat of is what happened at Red Bull in 2024, where they should have easily wrapped up the Constructors' Championship, though due to the efforts, or perhaps lack of, one of their drivers, we have to deal with McLaren Twitter stands instead. On a more positive note, and lap 1 aside, Monza appeared to be a step in the right direction for Antonelli, who looks set to be retained in 2026 anyway. Problem is, could the damage have already been done? Formula 1 is as much a mental game as it is a physical one. Look at Daniel Ricciardo's stint at McLaren, or even what we're seeing with Sainz at Williams at the moment for examples of drivers who had incredible form fly out the window, all over one difficult situation. And yes, this is an FP1 video, so of course I'm bringing up the boy. Let me put it to you this way, can you remember a bad race for George Russell in a Williams? Besides maybe Imola 2021, it's probably quite difficult, and that's probably because he was driving a Williams, which was in the extremities of nowhere 90% of the time. Instead, you can only really remember the results that went well, and it was that low-pressure environment that allowed George to work through his mistakes and come out of them with more confidence and overall a better race driver. By contrast, Antonelli's been thrust out stark naked into the open, at the mercy of the elements with no hope of survival. Yeah, good luck getting that image out of your head. Problem is, Mercedes don't have a time machine, and it's not that they can offload Antonelli to a smaller team now either. Ignoring the fact that this could only ever be seen as a massive loss of confidence in the Italian, there are very little open slots for him anyway, with the only logical one being the soon-to-be Mercedes-affiliated Alpine outfit. And I'm not sure I could even send my worst enemy to that complete and utter cesspit. So Merc are left with only 2 options. They can throw the Italian overboard, which, let's be honest, is overly harsh and they're not going to do anyway, or they stick it out for 1 more season and then re-evaluate their driver position for 2027. I think by that point, if he still hasn't turned things around, then you've given him all the opportunities you can as a top team before having to show him the door. Would it come to that? Well, I'm no psychic. Honestly, just go watch any prediction video I've ever made and you'll work that out fairly quickly. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, drop the video a like and get subscribed for more in the future. And if you've not been on social media this week, well, McLaren have had a little meltdown of their own. I made a video on that and the link is somewhere above my head right now. A big thank you to the members and patrons who got to see this video early and can also watch Sunday's video right now. Head over to the links in the description if you'd like to find out more on that one. I'll be back on the weekend with said video, but until then, have a good one.